That's good. Then how about Alibaba? Since Alibaba's stock price has hit a bottom low since IPO.
It's so funny. You're hitting the nail on the head. I just sold puts in Baba the other day.
Right. We both have short puts in Baba right now.
Which is bullish. So we're bullish Baba.
Well, but again,
once again,
a bullish trade. But if it goes down a little bit, we can still make money. It's just placing high probability trades.
Right, because some people say there will be more sell-off after the lockup period ends on March 18th. So what kind of option strategies you have for those investors who are already trapped in Alibaba's stock?
Well, if they're worried about a sell-off or worried about something coming up in the future, you can do a defined risk spread where you're taking, have the possibility of making some money, have a high probability of taking in some money on the trade, but you're defining your risk. So if it does have a big move, your loss is capped.
You're comfortable with it, right? You're comfortable with your loss if you're using the proper strategy.
And then what about Alibaba? Alibaba's stock price has hit a bottom low since its IPO. So based on your strategy, do you think it will come back again?
The problem with stocks that have just come out of an IPO is two things. First of all, investors don't know the stocks very well. They don't have a long history, so they're unsure in their operations. And second of all, IPOs tend to be priced relatively high compared to the value of the stock, so it's very typical for stocks to pull back after an IPO, which is, I think, what's happened with Alibaba. So what we want to see now is some price development, get investors more comfortable with the stock, and then see if we can move prices higher.
Okay. Do you think there will be more selling after Alibaba's lockup period ends on, I think, March 18th?
The problem with that sort of view is that so many people know about this. Everybody's looking for it to happen. For example, Google, which went through a similar IPO cycle, everybody thought that when Google's lockout period ended, there would be a tremendous amount of selling. It just didn't happen. I don't think it will happen in Alibaba either.
Next question is about Alibaba. So since Alibaba's stock price has hit a bottom since its IPO, the earnings were not good and the lawsuit has scared some investors. So for investors who are trapped in the Alibaba stock, how can they minimize their loss by selling cover calls?
Well, I don't know if I would necessarily say to sell cover calls. I mean, the calls are kind of expensive, but if the stock suddenly finds a bottom and starts to go back up again, then that call is going to be a loss. Yeah, so I prefer to take a hedged position. So that would mean either buying puts against the stock you already own, or sell the stock and replace it with a long call. Either one of those. Then if it rallies, you make money coming back on the upside. But if it goes down, you've limited your loss.
And what about Alibaba? Do you like Alibaba?
I do like it here. I happen to be long Alibaba here. Not long it because I think it's a great company, and I'm not long it because I think that there's some enormous opportunity. I'm kind of I'm a little bit of a freak about price, and Alibaba's on the low end of its range, and it also has extremely low implied volatility here. So I feel like it's a very interesting, this is what we call a complacent extreme, so we like it just based on price alone.
I see. Well, since Alibaba's stock price has hit a bottom low since its IPO, the earnings were not good, the lawsuit has scared some investors.
Sure.
So do you think there will be more selling after its lockup period ends on March 18th?
Well, I think part of the reason there's been so much selling right now is because everybody knows that. So I think it's actually much more of a bullish, if the market stays reasonably strong, I think Alibaba is interesting price-wise relative to the rest of the market, meaning it's cheap relative to the rest of the market. But if you're talking about, beyond that, I don't know. I think people have jumped the gun, though, with selling into weakness in there.
The price of Alibaba's shares has been dramatic up and down. This morning, the price has down to $85.12. So what do you think about Alibaba's price?
I think in the long term, Alibaba will no doubt be a great winner. I do believe that that in the next couple of months it could sell off if our broader market sells off, if technology sells off. I think it's going to be a very volatile ride for the next 6 months.
Okay. Why you feel really confident with Alibaba's stock?
From everything I've read, it's a fantastic company, and it has all of the earmarks of a long-term financial success.
Next question, I want to ask you about Alibaba. Since Alibaba's stock price has hit a new bottom low since its IPO, the earnings were not good, and the lawsuit has scared some investors. So, what is your advice on trading Alibaba stock for those investors who are already trapped in Alibaba? How can they minimize their loss by option strategy?
With options, I mean, obviously, people have to decide what's the right long-term strategy, but with options in the short term, Alibaba had a bad earnings reaction, and with that news you mentioned, but bottom line is they could be selling a call option as one strategy to generate extra returns and extra cushion against further losses. So, for example, if the stock's at whatever $90 for a round number, and you sell a 90 call, you might be able to get $400 or $500 per contract for the next several weeks to a month out, and so that way you could be getting maybe 5% a month back while you're waiting for the stock to recover. So it's a strategy. The cover calls is what that's cover call writing or selling of that cover call is what that's known as, and that's a way that you can moderate the volatility of a situation like that if you believe in the long-term story and you think it can come back eventually, but it might be bumpy in the meantime. Cover calls is a really good way to go.
Right. Alibaba's stock is having its lockup period ends on March 18th, I think. So do you think there will be more selling on Alibaba stock?
Yeah, I think that's a concern. So getting through the lockup is always a concern with any of the IPOs. You got to remember, I mean, even like Facebook, when they IPO'd, the stock dropped in half after the IPO. So coming off of IPOs, usually there's kind of an excitement that has to cool off a little bit. But obviously, I would suggest that yes, after the lockup, it probably is a little bit better time to consider it. But we're still got to work off the effects of that earnings. The earnings was one of those that a lot of times will linger until the next earnings report, and the next quarter would probably be the big next event to watch, I would think.